Greetings, my good people. Happy Sunday. Sunday, the usual day on the weekends for our book club, where today we are continuing to read The Idaho 4, An American Tragedy by James Patterson and Vicky Ward. So far, it's been pretty gripping, very compelling book. Hard to put down. Hey, dreams. But before we get into the book reading, hello, Ann Vroom. Welcome to my chat. I do have two true crime scam alerts for you before we get into this. One of them is related to Kohberger and the Idaho 4, and one is completely not related. I'm going to show them to you real quickly before we get into the reading. But first, hello, Cat OG. Thank you for saying hi from the bushes. I do appreciate that. Let me add my lovely co-reader Cinnamon Girl to the stream before I show you these scam alerts.
Hello, Lynn and everybody.
How was your week?
My week was busy, very busy, and yesterday I overexerted myself.
Oh,
I forget how old I am.
Are you sore?
I'm a little sore, and but I'm better today. I was not very good yesterday. I did a 3-hour dance class, thinking in my head that I'm still in my 30s when I'm way past that.
I feel you.
I don't want to admit it is the thing, it's like, yeah, I can do this. And so I'm paying for
3 hours.
I know, right? Usually it's just like an hour and a half, right? On Saturdays when I go. But there was a special choreography class yesterday that I wanted to go to. And I thought it was 45 minutes. It was an hour and a half too. So it was like, oh gosh, I really want to leave. So I actually ended up leaving just a little bit early, but it did me in.
Yeah. Well, I always tell myself when my body is sore, it's a good, after doing exertion like that, it's a good thing. It's my body is, healing and it's getting
that's right.
Stronger. It's both getting stronger and healing. And
that's
good thing.
That's exactly right. Yes, it's very true. And so that's where I'm at. But I'm good.
I tell people this as much as I can when they're into, exercising and they're feeling sore and stuff. I used to run a lot. I did one marathon and like 3 half marathons a long time ago.
Yeah, me too. I did. Gosh, we have so many parallels. Yeah, me too. Me too.
And you know what I used to do when I was running? Because I hated running. I did it just to have a goal and, complete a goal. I just did not like running at all. But it did feel good, afterward. I would definitely get that adrenaline rush. But when I was getting really tired and wanted to stop, I would say in my head, your body is stronger than your mind thinks it is.
Yeah.
Your body is stronger than your mind thinks it is. And it always worked for me because I'm like, I could take one more step. That's
right. Right. Yes. It becomes a total mind game, and it is about mind over body at that point. But I feel you. I mean, been there. I know exactly how it feels. And that last, couple of miles of the marathon, you just want to curl up into a ball. Oh, you want to die. Yeah.
You want to die. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sending good vibes right back to you. Shift happens. And while you're here, in case you're interested, I have 2 true crime scam alerts. Okay. So the first one I'm going to show you is if you guys are into true crime coverage, your algorithm is probably introducing to you tons of body cam footage lately. Tons. I mean, body cam footage is just blowing the hell up on the internet right now.
Yeah, you're right. I've been seeing it a lot.
It was always popular, but it's for some reason, I don't know why, maybe, I don't know what's going on, but it's become more popular. So anytime something gets popular, anytime any scammer looks and sees, views, a way to get some traction on this, they create fake things. They scam it somehow. Well, there are all kinds of channels, fake body cam channels right now. And sometimes they are forthright and they say, you know, hey, this was a dramatic reenactment, but they don't, a lot of times they don't add that information until after the video has gone mega viral. Yeah. And there's also AI true crime stories that was blowing up for a while. I haven't seen as much, but there are a lot of true, you know, like channels that present themselves as straight up true crime and telling a story, but it's all fucking made up. And if you watch, you know, closely enough, you could tell, wait, this isn't a real story. And you go to look up the real crime and you could tell they're not a real story, right? So, but in this one I'm about to show you, this is an actual fake body cam channel. Okay. So what they'll do is sometimes they'll put up real body cam, but most of the time it's fake body cam that they have completely dramatized and enacted. So if you look at this one here, you can see that one of the ones that went, there's, where is it? Like this one says, and I'm not going to click on them because I don't want her to get another view or them to get another view. But this one has 521,000 views. Crazy lady steals car and sends cop flying. There's another one on here where they talk about, you know, cop arrests black mail carrier in rich neighborhood. So a lot of it is racially motivated. This one is crazy Karen vandalizes and shoots Tesla. Okay. It's all fake. These are fake. So I just want you to be aware of these. Don't get sucked in by fake body cam footage channels. Don't give them views because it'll just keep inspiring to go on. The other scam alert I have for you is now that the Idaho 4 case has a conclusion in terms of a, you know, Bryan Kohberger is guilty. He pled guilty. He's spending the rest of his life in jail. But before any of that happened, the true crime social media channels had started splitting up into pro-burger versus guilters, right? And not all pro-burger channels, but many of them, they want to keep that going. They want to keep that whole, you know, the Idaho 4 case was massive for many channels, grew a lot larger just solely on the fact that they just heavily focused on Idaho 4. So what we are seeing now, I'm going to take this down and show you just we're going to start seeing the Kohberger scams. All kinds of scams that are meant to keep the Idaho 4 name alive and the Kohberger name alive, claiming that he wasn't given justice, that he was falsely accused and incarcerated, that there's no, I agree, Kiwi. Yeah, it's pro-burger. And I honestly, I say that they're pro-crime because it's like they're basically saying, I'm pro the criminal. I'm here for the criminal. I'm going to do whatever I can. The dude fucking pled guilty, and there's a good reason for that. There was plenty of evidence, but also what you have happening is that more and more evidence is being released by the police now that he's pled guilty. This happened with the Chris Watts case as well, where Chris Watts' case was massive, and then he pled guilty, and there were people who could not believe that he was guilty. So they started all these, you know, scams, like famously the Lana Oriani Fight for a Family scam, where she said that she had signed up his parents as board members, but they didn't even know it. So, so we're starting to see those similar types of themes pop up. I saw this. I'll show you right now. There's this channel right here called Birdie, who's going live practically every day, talking about how it was a sting. It's corrupt. The police are corrupt. He got a bad deal. And what they're doing is using the discovery that's being released by the police to comb through every little word and interpret it in the most cynical way. They'll look at every tiny little word and every tiny little mistake that maybe the police made, as they did that intentionally just to frame Bryan Kohberger. And now, of course, we have the change.org petition that's been put up recently. Exonerate Bryan Kohberger for violation of his constitutional rights. This is their scam. Okay. His violation, his rights were violated. We need to, and they create a purpose for the new viewers, for the pro-burger viewers. Why is it? I don't know. Probably for protection, Bama Cat. Probably for his own protection, because he brutally murdered 4 children essentially while they were sleeping or should have been sleeping. Okay, so there's a good chance. And also remember, there was a lot of commentary in the sentencing from the victim impact statements. Hey, you're going to get your jail justice, your prison justice. And whether we agree with that or not, those are things that were said, and that probably freaked the people out who are trying to protect him from not getting that prison justice immediately as he goes into prison. I do find it interesting that he's in the same cell block. I don't know if this is true. I've just heard this, on the streets, that he's in the same cell block as Chad Daybell, but that can't be right, because Chad Daybell's on death row and Bryan Kohberger is not. So I'm not sure if that's right or not. But let me show you the actual write-up for this change.org petition post. Okay. This is a deeply and by the way, I know that this petition was put up after his after he pled guilty. Okay. So they're gonna lean into this. This is a deeply personal issue because it could happen to any one of us. No, not any one of us's DNA was found on the sheath underneath the body of a murder victim. Okay. But anyway, let's keep going. Bryan Kohberger, an ordinary citizen like you and me, has been wrongfully accused due to a violation of his constitutional rights. What is the violation? Tell me, what is the violation of his constitutional rights? Let's keep going. The Constitution guarantees every American certain inalienable rights, including their right to a fair trial. That is true. He got a very fair shake at a trial. He's the one that decided to plead guilty. Okay. However, in Bryan's case, these rights were blatantly disregarded. Show me the blatant disregard. Show it to me. These rights were blatantly disregarded. It's essential that we stand up against such miscarriages. So they just kind of blather on and make all kinds of accusations without any specificity about how exactly. They just use really outrageous words and terms to suck people into this idea that they need to have a purpose. There's a purpose and a bigger reason for them to declare that he's not guilty. No, the only reason for most of them, I'm not saying all of them, but for most of them, is to keep the money train going. Okay. So they put up these types of petitions and they campaign on it. And sometimes they create fundraisers to try to get money to get a lawyer for him, so he can, for somehow get out of prison. He's never getting out of prison. He pled guilty. These people are scammers. Okay. So just all I'm saying is don't fall for this stuff. It might be entertaining to watch. But don't give your money to these scammers. Don't fall for it. Don't become an activist for these scammers. They're just scammers. They're just trying to keep the money train going on Idaho 4, which is very unfortunate. it's one thing to go live and to like look at the evidence. It's a whole other thing to spin it into Bryan Kohberger is this poor innocent young man who was just done wrong. He wasn't. He had every chance in the world. Isn't it sad that you have to say it out? It is. It's so very, very, very sad. And what about the rights of, that's what happens in a lot of these cases, is that the people who have the biggest right to speak on this are dead, right? They're dead. And so the only people left to speak on it are the family members. In another situation that I'm also still focusing on very much is the Epstein situation. You know, they're about to, it looks like it's possible that they're about to pardon one of America's, actually one of the world's most prolific and incendiary child traffickers. Okay. And they've just moved her to like a low security prison in Texas, rather than the high security one that she was in. And it looks like she's about to be pardoned. And so her Virginia Giuffre's family has come out really emotionally saying, you know, what about our sister? And Virginia Giuffre was one of the people that, you know, was the most vocal, who brought this entire Epstein situation more to the mainstream forefront, because of the fact that she had picture evidence of Ghislaine Maxwell and her and Prince Andrew. Okay. So the only people that are left to speak for Virginia are her surviving family members, because she reportedly unalived herself. Some people think that she was murdered, not sure. Maybe it was indirect murder through all of the harassment and the threats that she was getting as a result of speaking out. But that's the type of stuff that, you know, the victims, what about the fucking victims? We're always trying to coddle and make sure that the rights of the criminal or the alleged criminal are protected, but what about the fucking victims? So I just wanted to put out that scam alert, and let people know I'm very much considering doing an Epstein series, but I don't like to just pop off and do videos without doing a ton of research and really, really understanding the full story. Yeah, I agree. Yes, just days before she died, she had been run over by a bus. It was like a month or two before, or something like that. I mean, I don't doubt that there are people who are powerful enough to make something like that happen to her. I really don't doubt that. I mean, look at it, it's very possible that Jeffrey Epstein was killed in prison. It's very, very possible. I mean, they're trying to hide that as much as possible, but it's extremely possible that happened. And, you know, if you can get into a high security prison jail and off a guy who's about to go to trial, what can you do? How much easier would it be to pay off somebody to, you know, hit the most vocal and sympathetic victim, you know, one of the sympathetic victims, you know? So anyway, I just wanted to say all of that. But here we are with we're going into chapter 19 of this book. It's been really good so far. It's a good read. Stargazer Mom, do you think she has enough dirt, irrefutable dirt on politicians and power that can get her out? I think she has. I think all of the victims and those files have dirt on many, many, many people, whether they are politicians or not. It doesn't even matter what side they're on. They are powerful enough to convince politicians and the intelligence community to keep this stuff covered up. So I do think it's quite possible. I mean, why won't they just release the files like they said they would? Why? And I'm not just talking about this current administration. I'm talking about all the administrations that have known about this asshole. All of them. You know, I'm just pissed off at the government right now about this. The government as a whole. it's really showing how corrupt and dirty the American political and justice system has become. And I don't think that there's corruption in every single case. I really, really don't. What I think is that the more powerful the person on trial is, or the more powerful the stakes are, the higher the stakes are, the more corruption there potentially could be. And I mean, this is as high stakes as it goes. I mean, this child trafficking, and somebody who is expected, and I'm talking about Jeffrey Epstein, who's expected to be an agent for the Mossad, who was there, helping them get blackmail on their both their Israeli enemies and associates, just so that they had something to hold over them. Governments do this, unfortunately. They do this. We do this to other people as well. So, but there's a very good likelihood that he has dirt from those shenanigans, and the intel community just doesn't want people to know how much they were all working together. And so in my eyes, the government is putting whatever government secrets they had with Epstein, putting that above the rights for the victims and for justice. And that's why it's a pro-crime action to cover up these files. It's pro-crime. I'm talking about the whole government. So please don't make it political. And nobody is. I'm just saying that because it's such a hot button. Anyway, so, and one more thing, and I've said this before, I also think that the same reasons for Diddy's whatever slap on the wrist by the jury are for the same reasons. I don't know if it's the same people pulling the strings. I don't know, but I think it's for the same reasons. I'm not necessarily saying that Diddy was a intel source or anything like that. But what I mean is, there are powerful people who don't want whatever he has out there, or him to, because they know that as soon as he's found guilty, that the investigation files will be released. And it's less likely that that'll happen now, because he's been slapped on the wrist for the two biggest charges that he had, which was the trafficking and the RICO. So it was like they gave him like a token guilty plea, or guilty verdict for the transportation for the purposes of prostitution, just to make it look like they were trying to get justice. I just don't know. I don't know. It all really pisses me off that basically probably the worst crime on the planet, other than killing another person, is being covered up by many governments, not just ours. Diddy prosecutor who lost the case, former FBI Comey's daughter. Hard to know what to make. I know they fired the prosecutor, and they probably make it look like, well, she didn't do a good job because she wasn't able to get Diddy prosecuted. I don't know, man. They could have done that immediately after the Diddy verdict, but it didn't happen until after they decided not to release the Epstein files. That's just weird. Yeah. So anyway, but we are here to continue reading this book. And for anyone who wasn't here before, or is just coming in this to chapter 19 for the first time, we've read through very much the back lives of the 4 victims: Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and I almost said Chapin. Ethan. Read through their backstories, got to know who they are as people, talked a lot about their friendships, their early college life, hi big girl for life. Talked about that's what the previous chapters have been about. The last chapter we read was leading up right up to the murder and the immediate aftermath, just the immediate aftermath. And it was last week's read was kind of hairy because you get the TikTok of what the kids are doing in the days and seconds leading up to that horrible, tragic event. But now it appears that they're kind of cliffhanging us and now going back to Bryan's backstory. And I think that's where we're starting here. So why don't you go ahead and start reading, my lovely co-reader?
I would, excuse me, I would be happy to. Okay,
hey.
Chapter 19, Saylorsburg, Pennsylvania, 2013. The three teenage boys are racing through the trees pretending they're Marines. This is the Poconos. Racing around in the woods with knives or guns is normal here. In these dense woods, the kids can play paintball all day and airsoft, and they can hunt critters, and they can lose one another for hours on end. Two of the boys don't notice exactly where the third boy, a tall kid with bulging eyes, positions himself. They don't see if he's close to the house or even inside it. The house is invisible from the road. Its owner, Mark Bayless, a former Navy SEAL who is the father of one of the boys, bought it for precisely that reason. He liked its remoteness, that it was surrounded by woods. Mark is a skilled hunter of animals, but also of men. But even though he's a special forces veteran with skills and experience, he cannot catch the person who is repeatedly stealing his knives, his coins, his prescription pills, his girlfriend's jewelry. It maddens him. He keeps calling the cops, but they are worse than useless. They show up, file a report, do nothing. So Bayless stays frustrated. Could the thief be one of the veterans he houses nearby as part of the charity he founded? That's a bad feeling.
Oh, just before I turn the page, just so you know, I've tried to get rid of this line. I refreshed the page and everything. I've tried when we were reading before, that line didn't show up.
I know.
It disappeared.
I know. I got a little bit lost there at the bottom. Yeah. I was like, what? I can't really read it.
You have like a line in like maybe if I make if
so weird.
Oh, that's just so weird.
Oh,
and look what that just did.
That changes the layout of the entire page.
It
so
does.
Not all the copy is on the page that was before.
Yeah, and all I did was slightly stretch the corner. I was trying to see.
How weird. Well, that's okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a bad feeling. That's right. Where you left off. But at least the line is out of the way, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's good.
Okay, we continue reading. So Bayless stays frustrated. Could the thief be one of the veterans he houses nearby as part of the charity he founded? That's a bad feeling. Oh, you already said that. Sorry. He doesn't put it together until years later that the thief must have been one of his son's friends. He doesn't see it in the moment, but he's sure later how it happened. The first time, he believes, the tall, pale kid who weirded him out waited for the others to run off into the trees, then forced the lock and entered the garage. Bless you, Steve. That was my dog sneezing. The garage where Mark kept his collection of army knives and took one. On the next visit, Mark thinks, he took another. One by one, they vanished. Next, it was Bayless's coin collection, worth $25,000. Bayless talks to his son Jack and his nephew Brandon about the thefts. He says he's going to catch the thief if they try again. Shoot him. Jack tells the third kid, whose name is Bryan, that his dad is pissed. Bryan tells Jack he reveres his father. That's what he says, or at least what he puts in a text. But what he does, or what Mark thinks he does, smacks of something different than straight up hero worship. Someone starts to stalk Mark Bayless. The stalker hides in those trees, camouflaged, munching on Reese's peanut butter cups, dropping the wrappers on the ground, waiting for Mark to leave on one of his orange motorbikes or his pickup truck. The stalker forces the door open with a knife and heads for the bathroom where Bayless keeps old prescription drugs.
And the thief can guess where he keeps jewelry, in the bedroom. One time, the thief is up in the bedroom and hears wheels in the driveway. Bayless is back. Later, much later, Bayless puts the scene together in his head. He comes to believe that Bryan, knowing he has the element of surprise on his side, hides, waits for the veteran to walk toward the back of the house, then sprints out the front door and into the woods he knows will protect him. Through the trees and onto the road, safe for now.
Wow. Thank you for the super chat, OG. Thank you. I always catch your videos, but my first time chatting. I appreciate that. Nice to see you. So wow. Okay, so this is pain. This doesn't surprise me in the least that he was sneaking around and stealing people's shit. Not at all. But we're still hearing the story. We haven't come to that conclusion yet, but that it looks like that's where it's going, is that he was stalking people and then running into their houses and stealing from them. But he has this warped sense of way of thinking about it. Like, I think your dad's awesome. Well, he thinks his dad's so awesome that he wants to kind of be like him, right? And be close to him and then get his stuff. Right?
Twisted, yes.
It's very twisted. You're right. You two back at bad actors. I tried to look at settings and I think I didn't really see it, but I just need to do a little bit more. At least it's not in our way now when the text goes to the bottom of the page. All right. Chapter 20. Broheadsville, Pennsylvania, fall 2012. When the tall, thin man and the fat teenage boy enter his boxing gym near Big Cheese Pizza off Route 209, Jesse Harris thinks, this is a familiar sight. Anxious parent bringing in troubled child. The former pro boxer opened his gym here for precisely this reason. He thinks of himself as having a dual role, physical fitness guru and mental fitness guru. Jesse set up the gym to offer local people who've given up, teens mostly, hope, purpose. Anyone who's failed in life can make it in Jesse's gym. Boys looking for brotherhood, girls looking for sisterhood or to learn self-defense. Anyone who's prepared to work, to train. Jesse is proud of his results. There are regular stories in the Pocono Record about the correlation between the work done in his gym and the reduction of crime in the area. Years after they've trained with him, people stop him in the street or wave him down in his car to express their appreciation. It makes Jesse feel great. Today, the lumbering kid who barely makes eye contact lets his dad do the talking. The man introduces himself as Michael Kohberger and says, with forced brightness, "This is my son, Bryan."
He says Bryan wants to lose weight. He's changing his habits, his life. He's going to start a vegan diet, but he needs to build muscle, speed up his metabolism. The father's clearly a nice guy, Jesse notes, but a talker, hardly pausing to breathe. He tells Jesse he's got his own HVAC business, works for the Pleasant Valley School District. He glances around the gym and tells Jesse he'd be happy to help with any maintenance issues for free, fix a refrigerator, that sort of thing. Jesse says he can help Bryan as long as Bryan is prepared to help himself. He tells Bryan, whose eyes stay glued to the floor, that he can use the gym daily for as long as he wants. The other guys in the gym look at the fat kid and roll their eyes. They've given up on him already. He'll never fit in, they are thinking. Jesse wonders if they are right. He too isn't sure about this kid. But the next day, right after school, the kid appears, swinging his backpack off his shoulders. The gym is in easy walking distance of the high school, but his dad drops him off. Jesse's regulars ignore the kid as he gets to work. No one else in the room is anywhere near that size. He must be more than 100 pounds overweight. Jesse shows Bryan the gloves, and they do basic pad work. Jesse stands on one side of a face-size ring hanging from the ceiling, and Bryan stands on the other. Pow, pow, left, right.
Through his bulging eyes, though his bulging eyes can't seem to stop moving, the kid looks focused. His considerable body weight goes into the punch. Jab, jab, 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3. Jesse can tell that the kid likes the rhythm of the punching. They all do, Jesse thinks. That's why boxing is better than therapy. The kid is surprising. He's back the next day. Jesse shows him the power pad. The kid stands on it and shows and pulls up bands to his sides. If he keeps at it, Jesse tells him, he'll be able to pull the bands over his head. And the kid comes back again and again. Every day, the dad drops him off, coming in to chat with Jesse if the coach has the time. He mentions that Bryan's had trouble in school. He's been bullied, doesn't like their new house. His friend Jeremy was a bad influence, and they've had to separate them. Jesse notices as the days pass that Bryan is getting leaner and more focused. He spends 2 to 3 hours at a time in the gym. It's almost as if he's got nothing else to do, Jesse thinks. He probably doesn't. Now, when the dad comes in, he tells Jesse he's proud of his kid. Jesse tells him he's proud of Bryan too. The kid's no bother, not to Jesse or anyone else. Keeps to himself, works out, then leaves. The regulars start to acknowledge him. Hey, Bryan, he's one of them. For now.
Chapter 21, Effort, Pennsylvania, April 2013. Casey Arntz is playing a video game, The Sims, on a Friday night when she gets a text from Bryan Kohberger. She smiles because she likes Bryan. That's a bit of a controversial stance in her friend group. Bryan has had his ups and downs with her younger brother, Tom, who says Bryan likes to get physical for no reason. One of Tom's friends, Brandon Andriola, says Bryan has a temper. There's also the fact that Bryan hangs out with Jimmy Seba, who Casey thinks is a dick. And Seba is known to be a junkie these days. But she likes Bryan. He may not say much, but Bryan has always been sweet to her. He's solicitous in his texts. He always asks her how she is. Most recently, he's been asking about her work at the glitter manufacturer in New Jersey, about her career plans. She wants to go into interior design after college. Casey knows Bryan's plans. He graduated high school early in March and wants to go to college, maybe East Stroudsburg University, in the fall to study criminal justice.
Tonight, he's texting Casey because he needs a favor. He tells her his car broke down and he has to get to his cousin's house near Luna Rossa, a restaurant in Broadheadsville that's a 20-minute drive up Route 209. He doesn't say why. Casey says fine. She's happy to help Bryan. She feels sorry for him that he's stuck all the way up in Indian Mountain Lake in that weird gated community. It's a full mile from his new home to the security guard's booth. So she gets into her car and drives the 3 miles up the mountain to see Bryan, who's waiting for her outside the security gate. She drives him to Luna Rossa. He pops in and out of the restaurant, then asks if she can swing by CVS quickly because he needs to buy needles for his aunt who is diabetic. Interesting. Casey thinks that's a bit weird, shady actually, but it's hard to argue with such apparent compassion. She gives him the benefit of the doubt. When he's inside CVS, she thinks fondly of the times they've joshed together, like when they used to play the game of things with Tom and Brandon, a party game where players guess who wrote which anonymous answer to prompts like things you shouldn't say to your mom. She misses those happy times. A few days later, he remembers to text her happy birthday. She thanks him, as she always does. But when she next sees Brandon, he tells her it's common knowledge that Bryan gets heroin at Luna Rossa. Wow. That's why he needed Casey to give him a ride there and back, and why he stopped to get needles at CVS. Wow.
Casey feels sick. She realizes that most likely she was carrying heroin in her car. Had she been pulled over, she could have been arrested. Now Casey is mad. At 7:49 p.m. on May 21st, she sends Bryan a Facebook message, a rare instance in which she is driving the exchange, not him. I would like to hand you a big congratulations for lying to me about driving you around. I should have added up beforehand, but thought I was doing something nice for someone. So thank you. If you would have gotten caught, I would have gotten in trouble just for driving you around, not even knowing why. Needles for your aunt? Wow, real great story. Bye. A full day later at 8:33 p.m., he responds, I'm in rehab. I know that, Casey writes back. She receives no reply. But as the weeks turn into months, she forgives Bryan. How could she not? He's back from rehab and he's so patently lonely. He texts her repeatedly to ask if her parents will let them hang out. And when she doesn't respond, his texts become sadder and less frequent. In early 2014, Bryan tells her to be proud that she's making some difference of her life. I'm not, haha, he writes. Casey wishes that she could be nicer to him, that they could all be nicer to him. He seems to be struggling.
before I turn the page and room, I'm not sure of the exact age he started using it, but I feel like I heard it was when he was in high school or
Right.
just after,
Yeah.
somewhere around that time. Yeah. Yeah. He just needed those for knitting needles. Come on, you guys. You have to think. I always think this through, like whenever I'm, I'll think about what the scammers will try to do to, explain away his very, very odd behavior and all the weird shit that's coming out about him that, oh, well, this is a good one. He just needed knitting needles, you guys. It was really diabetic needles for his mom. Yeah, that's right. I mean, go ahead and believe all that shit. Anyway, let's keep going. On March 27, 2014, nearly a year after the car ride to Luna Rosa, he sends a text. You know I love you guys. Always will, even if we stop talking one day. What is Bryan talking about? What does it mean?
Chapter 22, Indian Mountain Lake, Pennsylvania, 2014. Michael Kohberger doesn't want to make the call he's about to, but he has no choice. His own son is a threat to the family. None of it has worked. Not the boxing, not the diet, not the trips to the gun range, or the move away from Jeremy Seba, Bryan's childhood friend who has gotten into heroin too. Not even a stint in rehab. Bryan can't stop using, which means he can't stop stealing. Now he's taken Melissa's cell phone and sold it at a mall kiosk for $200, half what it's worth. Actions have consequences. Children, whatever their age, need to understand that. So he closes his eyes briefly, then dials 911. The police arrive, read Bryan his rights, and cuff him. The kid is civil, barely looks at his dad. He knows who called the cops and why. There's a time to be calm, to talk to the police politely. Bryan knows that because he's only 16. There's a good chance this will be expunged from his record if he behaves.
Sorry, I was just looking up Kohberger's age.
Yeah.
So he was born in 94. So wouldn't that make him 20 around this time?
Yeah, I think so. That's
because
right.
they're talking about 2014. So
Right.
Right. It looks like he was 20.
Right.
So he didn't go. Anyway, so I'll keep reading. He'll go again to rehab. Outwardly, he'll be the good, polite son everyone wants, but inside, alone in the basement, Bryan lets his true feelings out on Tapatalk and SoundCloud, writing, recording, and posting an original rap song made for other sufferers of visual snow, a neurological condition that is the visual equivalent of TV static. The rage, the loneliness just pours out of him. The words are layered over a beat that is equally staccato and furious, a track no one his family is likely to hear. But this is the real him. Always the same thing that disrupts my life. When I'll change? I guess when the time is right. Procrastinating my derange. To change would be a fight. Wow, these are very telling. So I'm pacifist, like I'm afraid to get a bloody fist. Look at this. My mind is pissed and I keep running. Why is this when I hit, it always leaves them stunning? Why is this when I hit, it always leaves them stunning? What's that? I suck in the future, but I'm never looking at the fucking present. Keep it up. Act like you're all that. Leave your loved ones crying like some seagulls. You're not my equal. You are evil. But I'm unintelligible people, evil devil. And now I'm going regal. Don't fuck with us. Hope you learned your lesson. Wow. I read the whole thing just because it was going, I read the rest of the.
Yeah.
You can read the next page.
It's very weird.
But that's, lyrics are very telling. It comes straight from the person's heart, Don't fuck with us. Hope you learned your lesson. So who is he talking to? I always thought that this was the first time he actually got caught that he did other things. I don't know if he ever killed another person, but he's a killer. He's homicidal, they're saying in his family that he was violent, that they were doing all these things to change that violence inside of him and the bad behavior. But it was, some people are just born murderous, or they have that inclination and it gets triggered by other outside events. I mean, some people are just born that way. And so and I keep going to this idea because what we're here to do is try to read all of this and understand why did he do what he do. And sometimes the answer, as unsatisfactory as it is that some people are just killers. Some people just are born and they decide they want to kill. And as horrible and as unfair and as unjust as it is, that is the way it is. And but the Kohbergers would say that I'm being unfair to him. People aren't just born killers. He's not a born killer. Anyway, it's just very, very interesting. But let's turn the page.
Okay, chapter 23, Indian Mountain Lake, Pennsylvania, August 2016. Bryan sits in the basement. He's out of drugs, of cash, of friends. Now his mom is on him to go to Bible study with her. She thinks that will fix him. He's gone a couple of times. A text beeps on his phone. Bryan reads it. Maybe there's something to the Bible stuff after all. This is divine timing. Jeremy Saba has been arrested for a DUI and possession of drugs. He's in jail. One man's misfortune is another's opportunity. Bryan calls a familiar person. Connie, he says to the woman who picks up. She trusts him wrongly. Bryan, she says, and thanks him for what she assumes is a call of condolence and support. Jeremy's mom tells him that she and Jeremy's dad will visit their son tomorrow at the jail by the courthouse in Broadheadsville. As Bryan hopes, the trusting woman shares the time they're planning to go. Would Bryan come visit Jeremy right after?
Bryan says yes. But as he ends the call, he might have been forming his real plan. Connie later said that the Saba's absence from their home gave him the perfect window to get what he needed. He used to live next door, so he knew the house, knew where Connie kept her jewelry and where she left her iPad, things he could sell to get his next fix. And he knew exactly how to break in through the garage. The next day, he executes the plan perfectly. As Connie and Jairi Saba leave the courthouse in Broadheadsville, Connie wonders where Bryan is. Why hasn't he shown up? He sounded so concerned and solicitous on the phone. Something Jeremy once said nags at her. Bryan is manipulative. When the Sabas pull up to their house in effort, she sees at once why Bryan didn't come. Someone has been in their home. The door from the garage has been forced open. Her iPad is gone. She doesn't need to wonder who the thief is. She knows. Will she call the police? Her fingers hover over the phone. She thinks about Bryan's mom, Marianne, a teacher who, like Connie, works in the school district. Marianne has in the past occasionally and uncharacteristically shared some of Bryan's struggles with her. There was his Asperger's syndrome diagnosis, and later, the drugs. She puts the phone away without calling anyone. She doesn't know any of the specifics, but she intuits that the Kohberger family is in enough pain right now without Connie Saba adding to their problems. So it is really sad, Mitten's mama. And this shows that, like, when you don't do correction on a person for their crimes earlier in life, it could roll up into something like this, like them thinking they're going to continue to get away with worse and worse crimes. This has to be stopped at youth. If you see these tendencies in youth, you have to stop it at the core and go take whatever legal measures you can. And sometimes that includes putting allowing your kid to go to jail, unfortunately, allowing your kid to get legal criminal consequences for their criminal actions. And I'm not saying that it's this woman's fault because she didn't call the cops. But you see that there's several instances where people knew that he was doing stuff to them, but they didn't call because they felt sorry for him. And that's part of the manipulative part. Yep, I agree. It's a well-written book. It's gripping. It's gripping in many ways. All right. Let's keep going.
Chapter 24, Effort, Pennsylvania, 2018. She hasn't seen him in months. Then she turns and suddenly there he is. In her kitchen, standing there unannounced, startling her. Jeremy's mom, Connie, isn't even sure which door he came through. He is just there, tall, well over 6 feet, towering over her, eyes bugging out. And he's thin, she notices, really, really thin. Bryan, she says, what are you doing here? Even as she asks the question, she knows the answer because she knows what they teach in rehab. He's come to atone, to make amends. He's come to say he's sorry for stealing from her. I knew it was you, Connie tells him. There's much more Bryan could say, that he started working toward a psychology degree at Northampton Community College, that he's lonely, he misses Jeremy, but he doesn't say any of that. He doesn't get the chance. After he's done apologizing, Connie thanks him, and then with as much kindness as she can muster, Connie asks Bryan to leave and never come back to the Saba house.
She needs to protect her son from the tall, newly thin former neighbor. Maybe, as she claims, he doesn't do drugs anymore, but somehow she senses he is still a threat to their family.
Chapter 25, Center Valley, Pennsylvania, 2018. Bryan's new classmates in the psychology program at DeSales University call him the Ghost. There's something spooky about him. Every day he enters class in the same uniform, a wrinkled black long-sleeve button-down and a tan leather jacket. He's always carrying his silver laptop and a Starbucks coffee cup. After class, poof, Bryan's back in his car and gone in a cloud of dust, starting the 45-minute drive along routes 78 and 33 back to Effort for his nighttime security guard job and any other job he can get. A lab partner, Josh Ferraro, likes how organized Bryan is with their biology project, testing how caffeine affects the heart rate of water fleas. But the guy's eyes seem unnaturally wide open, and they're constantly darting around while his face is completely still. It's unnerving, Josh thinks. Josh notices that Bryan becomes less aloof and more animated in psychological sleuthing, a class taught by Dr. Catherine Ramsland, a famous criminologist. But it's fair to say that they all love this particular class because it's fun.
Dr. Ramsland takes her students into a building they call the crime scene house. It's like a theater set. The students pretend they're detectives called in to investigate a crime. They're given a scenario like this. The gun was found here. There was brain spatter on the roof, 2 bullet holes there, and a rifle was in Johnny's hands. Then they're asked to theorize as to what happened. Dr. Ramsland teaches her students that killers get tunnel vision when they are committing murder. Interesting. That's why mistakes get made. Oh, you mean like dropping a knife sheath? Amid the high adrenaline and hyperfocus of the act itself, killers can forget things they otherwise would not. Bryan takes careful notes. He will later write in an essay for his finals that he's learned staging is common among killers and that investigators must wear fiber-free clothing to avoid having their DNA contaminate the crime scene. The DeSales students also study criminal profiling. They learn what sort of person chooses what sort of murder weapon. Typically, Ramsland tells them, white men choose knives. They are taught about digital forensics and learn that it's almost impossible to delete one's digital footprint. And they learn about procedure and law. For example, how the legal process will likely play out if one of them was charged with murder. Not that anyone thinks that would happen. Most of the students expect to go into law enforcement. Bryan is no exception. He texts his friend Jack that he wants to catch high-profile offenders.
Dr. Ramsland emphasizes to these future crime fighters how difficult it is to spot the killers in their midst before they strike. She's an expert on serial killers like Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, and Ed Kemper. She wrote a book based on her years of correspondence with Dennis Rader, the infamous BTK killer, whose moniker stood for his grisly methods: find, torture, kill. Rader, she tells the class, did not kill for 15 years while he was busy raising his own child. How to differentiate between him and us? Dr. Ramsland says there's a new theory arguing that psychopaths aren't the product of socioeconomics and environment alone. Biology has a larger role than people previously thought. The brains of psychopaths are structurally and functionally different from other people's, which means the only way to cure a psychopath is to get him therapy at a very early age, by around age 4, and try to train his brain to change. Bryan listens carefully to this and takes more notes. His classmates can't see what he is writing. Age 4?
Yeah. I wonder how you're supposed to recognize by age 4 that your kid could be a psychopath.
Right. I mean, most kids at that age act like psychopaths.
Yeah.
Anyway. At least my
dad. Yeah, exactly.
So how would you know?
I think the idea is, though, that if there's anything going on in your child's life that seems abnormal, get them into, there's nothing harming them to get them into mental health treatment as well as physical health treatment, you know,
right.
And that it could be preventative, you know, from somebody forming all the psychopathic behaviors that go along with being a psychopath,
right.
You know. But it is interesting to learn the things that they were learning in her class, which all go right along with, you know, the crimes he committed.
Right. And just underscoring what you said previously about getting help early. There's the academic, you know, proof of that. So, yeah. Interesting.
All right. Chapter 26, Center Valley, Pennsylvania, 2018. The image on their screens is mesmerizing. A dark-haired 20-year-old man with movie star look sits behind the wheel of his black BMW, his head tilted to one side. His face is bathed in the reddish glare of a setting California sun. He talks slowly, thoughtfully to the camera, as if to hypnotize his viewers with his words. Tomorrow, he says, is the day of retribution. You forced me to suffer all my life. Now I'll make you all suffer. Oh, wow. This is about Elliot Rodger. Oh. His name is Elliot Rodger. He's from a wealthy family. He flies first class. His dad is a well-known movie director. He appears to be blessed in so many ways. But he's still a virgin, and he's furious about it. In the video, one of his series he recorded in May 2014, he delivers a message to all the girls who have rejected him since he hit puberty. Hours later, he embarks on a murderous rampage. In his apartment, he stabs his 2 roommates, Chang Yon James Hong and George Chen, and a friend, Weehan David Wayne.
Outside the Alpha Phi sorority house near the campus of UC Santa Barbara, Rodger fatally shoots 2 women, Catherine Cooper and Veronica Weiss, and injures a third, Bianca DeCock. At a local deli, he shoots and kills another young man, Christopher Michaels Martinez. Then he drives his sleek black BMW through the crowded streets of nearby Isla Vista, shooting indiscriminately out the window. He injures 13 more people before crashing his car and committing suicide with a single bullet to the head. Not only did Rodger meticulously plan the mass murder and suicide, he also broadcast his scheme in a series of videos on his YouTube channel. If you hit the mute button, you'd think you were gazing at the next Tom Cruise. But if you unmute, to all the girls that I've desired so much, they've all rejected me and looked down upon me as an inferior man. I hate all of you. I can't wait to give you exactly what you deserve. In fact, Catherine Ramsland explains to her forensic psychology class, Rodger had waited. His ultimate act of vengeance was carefully thought out, the result of years of pent-up anger about his lonely life. He kept a journal outlining his sexual and social frustrations and his various coping mechanisms: video games, late-night drives, trips to the gun range, buying lottery tickets, a new life in Santa Barbara. But none of it gave him sex or girls or the friends he so craved. When he lost his only childhood male friend, he was triggered and began to plan the diabolical end.
He intended his final act to be so performative that it would catapult him to global fame. The last words he wrote in his journal were, "Finally, I can show the world my true worth." Roger titled the 137-page manifesto "My Twisted World" and emailed it to his therapist, who sent it to his mother, who received it minutes before her son began his killing spree. At the time of Roger's day of retribution, he was seeing multiple therapists. The month before, his parents had reported his troubling mental state to authorities, and the police visited his home. But as Roger was well aware, the law was narrow and precise about grounds for search warrants. He wrote in his manifesto, "If the police would have searched my room, found all my guns and weapons, I would have been thrown in jail, denied the chance to exact revenge on my enemies. That wasn't the case, but it was so close." Oh my God. Professor Ramsland explains that the police need better training to spot telltale signs of potential suicidal mass murderer. The key tool comes from the American Association of Suicidology. Each letter of the acronym is PATHWARM. PATHWARM represents a warning sign. I, ideation. S, substance abuse. P, purposelessness. A, anxiety. T, trapped. H. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
go ahead.
sorry. No, go ahead.
No,
okay.
No.
H, hopelessness. W, withdrawal. A, anger. R, recklessness. M, mood changes. As they learn this, the students don't realize that one of them, Bryan, exhibits every single one of these symptoms. No one person has full visibility on all the parallels between Bryan's life and Roger's. No one knows about the complaints Bryan texts to Jack Bayless about life on the Broke Bachelor Mountain. He describes himself as a good Catholic university student, full homo. No one knows that, like Roger, Bryan is a virgin who hates women. No one knows that Bryan copes with loneliness by immersing himself in video games. Like Roger, he goes for night drives. Like Roger, he visits the gun range. And like Roger, he goes to a local bar and tries
as I
to
was
pick up
reading
women.
through that Path is Warm, I was thinking he shows all of these according to reports, and that's basically what they're saying here.
Right.
That all seems very true. Those are the things that you see in mass murderers before they go out and commit those murders. So it's a good key. All right. Chapter 27, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, 2019. Instead of heading back to Effort on the highway, Bryan takes the scenic route through the Lehigh Valley. 15 minutes after leaving Center Valley, he's parking across the street from the Seven Sirens Brewing Company, which looks more like a vast Manhattan loft space than a college town bar. The students from nearby Lehigh University come here often. Bryan knows this. That's why he's here. Elliot Rodger wrote that he kept trying to place himself in settings where he could pick up women, but no one noticed him. Bryan must think that surely he'll be noticed. Women must spot his looks, his intelligence, and they must want him. They don't. So typically after a few drinks, Bryan pushes his way into unwanted conversations with both female bartenders and female patrons. He even asks for their addresses. Women have started complaining to the brewery's owner, Jordan Sorolnik, about the creepy guy with the bulging eyes.
So he put the kid on his watch list. Tonight, Sorolnik isn't going to give Bryan the chance to have more than one beer. Hey, he says, I need you to leave women alone. There've been some complaints. Bryan feigns astonishment. He gives a heck of a performance, almost Broadway level. Sorolnik will remember and demonstrate it in the future. I don't know what you're talking about, Bryan says. You have me totally confused. Bryan takes another sip of his beer and another. It's like they're playing a game of chicken. Bryan finishes his beer. Casually, he saunters out. Sorolnik doesn't know if his words have had any impact, but as the days tick by, he registers something that makes him happy. The kid doesn't come out.
Wow. That's very telling. I had heard a little pieces of that here and there, but I hadn't heard that full story. There's so many different. I wish there was one centralized spot where we could see all of these things, like all these red flags, and then be able to call them out. But then, that's invasion of privacy. It's so hard, man. It's so hard. Chapter 28, Effort, Pennsylvania, 2021. Bryan is immersed in studying for his master's degree. Even though he's been stuck at home working remotely thanks to COVID, he's doing so well that one of his professors, Michelle Bolger, wants to recommend him for a PhD in criminal justice at Washington State University. She's only ever recommended one other person. Bryan is feeling elated. But soon after March 16th, his phone pings with the news that Jeremy Saba is dead. The facts are tragically familiar. Saba was found upstairs in his bedroom. A lethal dose of fentanyl killed him. Extraordinarily, what a small pill can do. Extraordinary, what a small pill can do. Earlier, he had been tinkering with a car in the driveway, then drove off in it to go get some oil. He told his mother. Minutes later, he was home and then dead. The local police took his phone and computer, but they never found the dealer. Bryan is away when Jeremy dies. His parents had wanted to keep the news from him until he returned because they knew how hard it would hit. All that's left for Bryan are memories.
Memories of Jeremy as high as a kite, making them all walk the yellow brick road, the dotted paint lines on the highway, Jeremy driving his Mazda, Jeremy playing video games, Jeremy working out. The last time Bryan's parents saw Jeremy, he'd been doing well. Apparently, Mr. and Mrs. Kohberger had run into Jeremy and his parents at the Texas Roadhouse, a steakhouse in Stroudsburg. It was a good meeting. Bryan's dad told Jeremy he was proud of him for getting clean. Now Bryan pounds the table with his fist. He doesn't phone Jeremy's parents. He won't even attend the memorial service for Jeremy or contribute to the memorial page online. He knows that the tipping point for Elliot Rodger was the loss of his best friend, James Ellis. If only he were still my friend, Rodger had written of James. Bryan gets it. If only Jeremy were still alive.
Very interesting. I had picked up on that, as they were talking about how Elliot Rodger had a friend who recently died. So did Kohberger.
Right.
That's really, really interesting.
Is my audio choppy?
Yeah, so I'm doing a sound check now, y'all. Is the sound still it's static now and then? Is that for all of you? I wonder if, let me know. It seems better now. Okay, good. I'm just making sure. I don't want it because all you're getting is sound from this. I don't want it to be terrible for your ears. But continue to let me know if there's any sound issues. Chapter 29, Pullman, Washington, April 2022. Chief Gary Jenkins, head of the Pullman Police Department, looks at his list of questions and then up at the intern candidate he's Zooming with. The name of the guy staring back at him on screen is Bryan Kohberger. Jenkins has no idea where he's from or where he's situated for their online meeting. He certainly has no idea that just last month, Kohberger purchased a K-bar knife, sheath, and sharpener on Amazon for unknown purposes. What Chief Jenkins does know is that Kohberger is an incoming graduate student and teaching assistant in the well-regarded criminology department at Washington State University. Wazoo, as it's called, is in Pullman, so it's on Jenkins' beat. Kohberger has applied for an internship with the Pullman PD. Chief Jenkins can see the guy's hyper-focused. Not much else stands out about him, good or bad. But there's something odd about him that makes Jenkins say later he didn't think this guy would be able to build trust in his department. There's something antisocial about him. Thank you, Justice Jane. Are you there, Cinnamon Girl?
I am here. Sorry. They chit-chat for 30 minutes. Chief Jenkins winds up giving the internship to someone else, and he doesn't think much about the guy after that, barely remembers his name even. Bryan packs up his gear, his new knife included, and gets in his car for the long road trip to the other side of the country. WSU is in Pullman, Washington, on the border of Idaho, the Pacific Northwest. Elliot Rodger gave himself one last chance before planning his day of retribution. He moved cities, went from LA to Santa Barbara for college. I realized that my miserable, lonely virgin life was going to continue, and my only hope was to give Santa Barbara a try, Roger wrote. Bryan puts the key in the ignition. One last try.
Wow. Their stories really are very parallel.
Yeah. It's
In
creepy,
so
isn't
many
it?
ways.
Yeah.
It's interesting how they're putting this together. And Mittens for Kitten says, what I found weird was that BK tells Ellie in Pennsylvania that he is working on projects with the Pullman PD, but he wasn't, right? So he's clearly trying to assume the authoritarian role and connect himself to the police. We see that sometimes in true crime as well, where people say, "Oh, I'm police," or "I'm an informant," or "I work with the police. I talk to the police every day," and it's almost like they're trying to put on a cloak of the same authority as the police because they have proximity to them. But he was outright lying. They didn't have any projects that they were working on together. Um, I, and y'all just let us know if the sound gets unbearable at all. Sounds like it's just a little choppy here and there, but all right. Chapter 30, Pullman, Washington, late August 2022. It's the week before classes begin at Washington State University in the small town of Pullman. The little airstrip Pullman shares with nearby Moscow, Idaho, is just a 7-minute drive from the hilly campus. Wazoo is a large school, much larger than UI, with over 30,000 students. Wazoo territory is marked by the massive billboard bearing the logo of the Cougars, Wazoo's football team, who are competitive in their division, unlike Moscow's Vandals. But football is not the only selling point. This August, Wazoo's famed criminology and criminal justice graduate program has attracted an international elite bunch of self-described cohort of 11 students, 7 women and 4 men, who will be pursuing masters or PhD degrees. One student comes from South Korea. Another, Sa, is from Bangladesh. Leon is from Taiwan. At a meet and greet with the 20-odd faculty members, the students pile their paper plates high with mounds of Panda Express and size one another up. Size one another up. They make small talk and learn about their differing areas of interest, ranging from cybercrime to human trafficking to police militarization and domestic terrorism to drug crimes and drug courts.
One person says he studies maps, a subject the others can't quite fathom his interest in. At 42, Ben Roberts is the second oldest in the group. He suspects he's the only one from the West Coast. He looks at the others' serious, scholarly demeanors and thinks he's probably the only one who has ever used a chainsaw. Ben notices one of the students in particular. His name is Bryan Kohberger. Bryan stands out because he's painfully thin. His eyes move too quickly, and the bags under them are dark and too prominent for someone his age. Ben also notices that Bryan never takes off his jacket, even in the August heat. Ben assumes, wrongly, that he needs insulation on account of his willowy frame. Ben does not know about Bryan's history with heroin. He doesn't know that Bryan might be keeping his forearms covered in public to hide the telltale track marks of his past addiction. Ben is flattered when Bryan comes over to chat with him. Bryan is doing a PhD, which makes him senior to Ben, who is in the master's program. Bryan asks a lot of questions about Ben's background. The conversation kicks into high gear when Ben tells Bryan that he worked for the TSA. He was head of security at a small airport. Bryan lights up. "I've worked in security too," he says.
"Cool," says Ben. "Where?" Bryan becomes vague. "Oh, back home." He doesn't say where home is exactly. Ben shares some experiences he thinks Bryan might have had himself. He tells Bryan that there were times at the airport when he found it particularly inelegant to have to exercise access control. That is, having to tell people who believe they had clearance to enter a certain area that in fact they didn't, and then barring their path. "Did you have any of that?" Bryan nods vigorously. Ben continues, "And the worst I found is when people do have the clearance, but they haven't got the right paperwork on them. It's so embarrassing to have to stop them going through." "I know exactly what you mean," says Bryan. I'm sorry, but Bryan is pathetic, man. Ben wonders for a split second if that is, in fact, true. It felt like he might have been stretching, he later said, but at the time, Ben went with the flow. Bryan seems very articulate, Ben thinks. He spits words out with the fluency and confidence of someone who expects to be listened to. Ben has no idea that Bryan is in fact giving a bravura performance, playing the role of someone he has never been, namely someone who belongs in the room. The silent, awkward introvert has been replaced, for now, by a confident, articulate intellectual. Bryan might be figuring out at Wazoo he can start fresh, become the man he dreams of being. No one needs to know about his troubled past. Bryan turns from Ben and makes a beeline for the group of senior faculty members.
Like a Wall Street CEO, one by one, he pumps their hands and works the room. I'm Bryan, he says, and I'm excited to be here.
He's completely donning in a new persona, starting fresh, and just trying to and getting himself in the proximity of law enforcement, so he seems credible. That's what I'm seeing here, man.
Yeah, he's become a good actor.
Yeah,
bad actor.
Good bad actor.
Yeah.
Okay, your turn. It's your turn to read.
Sorry, I keep putting myself on mute.
No
Chapter 31, Pullman, Washington, early fall 2022. The cohort is sitting in a circle in a classroom in Wilson Short Hall. It's the third class in the research methodology course taught by their toughest grader, a redheaded French professor named Emily Pignol. I don't know how to say that correctly, sorry, whose expertise is in sexually violent offenders. Bryan is in the seat next to Dr. Pignol on her right. He takes this seat each time because he knows it means he'll be called on to present his assignment first as the professor makes her way around the circle. Bryan appears to like going first. He appears to think it gives him an advantage over all the Beckys in the room. Becky is a term used in the manosphere, chat groups Bryan is familiar with. Bryan knows all about incels, that is, involuntary celibates. Incels are members of a movement of frustrated men, all virgins, that sprang up on 4chan in 2014, just hours after Elliot Rodger committed mass murder and then suicide, the act that Bryan studied back in Professor Ramsland's class at DeSales. The idea of the movement, started in Rodger's honor, is that one day the incels will succeed in their beta revolution and overthrow the Beckys, Stacys, and Chads who have managed to make the betas feel so small and rejected.
The group is increasingly associated with violence. I had no idea they called them Beckys and
yeah, me either.
Okay. Bryan looks around the class. These women could all be considered Beckys, defined by incels as feminists who dye their hair, post stupid opinions, and need to be the dominant ones in relationships. By contrast, Stacys are stereotypically nubile. Oh my God. Used to male attraction or attention, prolific on social media, and date hunky rich chads. According to incel lore, Beckys need to be put in their place. After Bryan gives his presentation, the Becky next to him starts hers. He leans in closely, paying attention. As soon as she's done, he begins his offensive. He peppers her with questions that he appears to think show how smart he is and how dumb she is. Did she think about this theory? And what about that one? And had she read that book? She's getting annoyed. He can see that. Bryan looks over at Ben as if seeking affirmation, but Ben looks away. Some of the women are visibly pissed. Bryan doesn't seem bothered by their discomfort. Elliot Rodger would have been proud. It kills me when people... It's possible, Marlene CA. It's possible if he has the... I don't know. It's possible. But also, it seems like he isn't so convinced of his own terribleness. I think he thinks of himself as a victim. And that's one of the point of all these chapters about, Elliot Rodger and the incel stuff and how he acted, very much the same way. Incels think that they're victims. And so they don't think that they did anything wrong. even if they killed 4 people. That's probably why he went so hard into trying to, into his defense, is because he thought of himself as doing the right thing. They get into this online echo chamber where it's the right thing to get rid of those types of people. So, he's, regardless of whatever laws of the land there are keeping him from doing it or the morality of it, he thinks he has a moral agenda to get rid of these people that are so terrible. And I'm going a little further into it, but that's what I just think that would prevent him from unaliving himself, but that's just me. So, I think it's your turn, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Chapter 32, Pullman, Washington, fall 2022. It's been a long day. Bryan is tired. He's sitting in the back row in the class of Dr. Hilary Mellinger, a recent graduate herself who teaches a course on the role of cultural issues like immigration and homelessness in criminal justice. Bryan isn't particularly interested in Dr. Mellinger's course. Incels might consider her another Becky. She is an advocate for immigrant women and girls who are fleeing men perpetrating gender-based violence by knocking them around. Incels are reportedly at the heart of rising gender-based violence. In 2018, a Canadian self-described incel, Alec Manassian, was motivated, he said, by a hatred of women to plow a van into a crowded Toronto sidewalk, killing 11 people. He's been sentenced to prison for life, and he's become an icon in the movement. Dr. Mellinger interrupts his reverie. Bryan, she says suddenly, and she asks him a question about immigration that he hasn't prepared for. Did he even hear it correctly?
Shit, he doesn't know that one. The Beckys have turned around and are staring at him. So is Ben, who observed later. You could kind of tell that he was trying to say something, but it just wouldn't come out. He couldn't find the words. Dr. Mellinger looked shocked. Ben said Bryan looked like a dog caught in a thunderstorm. If his ears could have been pinned back, they would have been pinned back. He was just stiff as a board, didn't move, didn't speak, just kind of wide-eyed. Fortunately for Bryan, this happens in the final few minutes of class. He's first to leave the room, so no one sees his face as he heads to his car. No one can see if he's red-hot angry or red-hot ashamed. Either way, the stuttering, awkward guy, the real self he tried to leave behind in Pennsylvania, just appeared like a jack in the box. He knows that you can put him back, but you can't erase the discomfort in what just happened. Very interesting, very telling.
Chapter 33, Pullman, Washington, fall 2022. On page 118 of his manifesto, Elliot Rodger wrote, "I had nothing left to live for but revenge. I lived in a college town full of young, attractive students who partied and had sex all the time, and I didn't get to experience any of it. No one invited me to any parties, and in all the times I went out by myself to Isla Vista, none of the beautiful blonde girls showed any interest in having sex with me. Not one girl. These are crimes that cannot go unpunished. The more I thought about all these injustices that were dealt to me, the more eager I became for revenge. It's all I had left." Months later, the people physically closest to Bryan, the members of his cohort, look for the smallest clue as to why it all went down. There will likely be a trial at which they hope to find answers, but this or something like it is what they speculate happened sometime that August.
Bryan goes for an evening drive. He drives and drives in the dark. He drives when he can't sleep, when he needs to clear his head, and when the nightmares and visual snow recur, which they are doing now. Tap, tap, tap. He's back in the basement and on Tapatalk, the online message board, back when he was a teenager. I feel myself slipping away. It is as if the ringing in my ears and the fuzz in my vision is simply all of the demons in my head mocking me. I fall asleep, but I wake up quickly to bloody screams. Is any of this here? Am I brain damaged? No. Then why am I like this? Bryan has no one to share his hopelessness with. Even if he could find the words to do it, the others don't seem to want to hang out. He knows the cohort gathers on weekends for a beer. No one has invited him to join them. Just like Elliot Rodger, who swung between two college communities, one in Santa Barbara and the other 11 miles away in Isla Vista, Bryan has one other option to find a Stacy willing to date him, Moscow, Idaho, across the state border. He parks the car down in town and heads to a place he's read about online, the Mad Greek. They serve vegan pizza. As soon as he walks inside, he notices the blonde waitress. With her long hair and sphinx-like blue eyes, she would definitely be marked as a Stacy by the incels.
She's the epitome of the women who turned down Elliot Rodger. Her name is Maddie, like Elliot's childhood friend Maddie, who grew into someone who ignored Rodger. Will she notice Bryan? She comes over to ask what he'd like. He knows what he'd like. Her.
Chapter 34, Moscow, Idaho, August 21, 2022. It's pitch black, but anyone can see Maddie sitting at her vanity as clear as day through the window. She has no idea who is out there in the parking lot looking. But neighbors like Lexi Pattinson see her nightly routine. They know that she always takes her time putting on her face, foundation, then blush, eyeshadow, mascara, or fake lashes. Sometimes she uses a curling iron to style her long blonde hair. Anyone who didn't know Maddie's name would learn it in an instant because the letters spelling it out are in the window. Anyone can see right into her room's pink interior and discover the minutiae of her life as a cutesy girl who likes order. Even her quilt is pink. A passerby who stopped and stared would know she has a boyfriend because on weekends, he sits on the bed when Maddie and the other girls model clothes for Instagram and TikTok. She tags a boyfriend on social media. His name is Jake. Recently, the boyfriend brought Maddie cookies and a bouquet of flowers that stands in a vase on her dresser. Her mom, or at least a woman who looks exactly like Maddie, often pops in and so does an older, graceful-looking woman, Maddie's grandmother, whom she calls Deedle.
Anyone can see just from watching that Maddie is close to all these family members. She's even making a little quilt for someone, a baby. Kaylee, one of her friends, often pops in from next door. These two are obviously close. They pore over their phones, comparing social media posts, taking photos and videos of each other. They're so immersed in their phones and their coziness that they never think to look farther than the sanctuary of their yard. They don't see anyone out there staring. Corporal Brett Payne of the Moscow police later alleges, based on AT&T cell phone records and the pings Bryan's cell phone made off a Moscow cell tower, that was what Bryan did. Payne alleges that he was there at least 12 times between August 21st and November 13th, almost always late at night, cloaked in darkness. The theory among Maddie's friends is that she rejected him, so he watched, waiting. Elliot Rodger wrote of reuniting with a childhood friend named Maddie in the months before the day of the retribution. She was a popular, spoiled USC girl who partied with her hot, popular, blonde-haired clique of friends. My hatred for them all grew from each picture I saw of her profile.
They were the kind of beautiful, popular people who lived pleasurable lives and would look down on me as inferior scum, never accepting me as one of them. They were my enemies. They represented everything that was wrong with this world. Corporal Payne alleges that on the night of August 21st, Bryan was there at King Road between 10:34 p.m. and 11:35 p.m. At 11:37 p.m. at the junction of Farm Road and Pullman Highway, on his way back to Pullman, Bryan is pulled over by Latah County Sheriff's Deputy Corporal Duke. His car doesn't have a front plate. It's registered in Pennsylvania, where front plates aren't required. He'll need to change that in Washington and Idaho, Duke tells him. Bryan says okay. He's smooth with the officer, natural. The officer has no clue as to what Bryan is really doing in Moscow. If Bryan is asked about it, which he will be, he'll deny that he was doing anything other than going out for a drive, like he always does when under stress. He often goes out stargazing, he'll say. The police can't see into his mind. No one can, even though the people out here in the Pacific Northwest do try. Boy, do they try. That is extremely interesting that Elliot Rodger was obsessed with a Maddie. And it feels almost like when Bryan's looking around for his prey and he hears the name Maddie and he's studied this Elliot Rodgers thing, that it would have, tricked something in him. You know what I mean?
That's a very unnerving coincidence, isn't it?
It is. It's very, I mean, that's how random these,
right.
Their brains are, and how malicious and vindictive and predatory. Solo. I was actually just thinking about you today. I was like, gosh, I haven't seen Solo in a while. I'm sure there's no, I think Solo at the very beginning, they say this is a fictional writing, but they're using a lot of facts. I think it's still very well written. I don't think that the fictionalizing that they've done is salacious or wrongheaded. You know what I mean? But I also don't think that we should take everything it says as the gospel either. What they're basically doing is making, they're drawing out how things would play out based on the facts. But anyway, I'm so sorry, Solo. I'm sorry you haven't been feeling well. I know that's very painful, but it's good. But it is good to see you. Okay. Your turn.
My turn. Chapter 35, Pullman, Washington, fall 2022. Cassie Hanziak is a Wazoo freshman majoring in psychology and minoring in criminology. Her largest class is the undergraduate criminal justice course with Professor John Snyder. With white hair and a mustache, Dr. Snyder is one of the most popular professors in the department. He's the reason Cassie wanted to come to Wazoo. She's excited. But as she sits attentively during Snyder's first class, Cassie encounters something off-putting, rather someone off-putting. The professor talks and talks for 40 long minutes, often calling on class members in his fun, benign way. A tall, thin guy with bulging eyes stands in front of the class, facing them the entire time. He has a coffee in his hand. He fiddles with it. Cassie wonders who the heck he is and why he's staring. The way he holds himself exudes not confidence exactly, but self-importance, perhaps. Finally, Professor Snyder introduces him. This is your new TA, Bryan Kohberger. A couple of slides of a nice-looking family come onto the projector screen.
Hi, I'm Bryan, he tells the class. I'm here to continue my degree from Pennsylvania. I've got a master's in psychology. Here's my family. They look normal, Cassie thinks. Bryan tells them he'll be here with Professor Snyder regularly, and he'll be grading their papers. Then he sits down. Why didn't Bryan just sit at a desk in the front row until he was introduced? Cassie wonders. Her neighbor whispers to her that this guy is weird. Cassie smirks. Cassie sees Bryan twice a week, every time she has a class with Professor Snyder. There are two TAs, both guys. One often has his laptop in front of him. Bryan just sits there staring at the class, fiddling with his coffee cup. He doesn't say anything. It's strange. Where he's communicative, Cassie notices, is in his grading. She can tell he puts a lot of thought into marking her papers. He gives her A's and writes a lot of commentary. She assumes that because she's good at writing essays. She assumes that's because she's good at writing essays. She doesn't think he's a standout student. She's a standout student, though. Sorry. Until, that is, she hears from some of her female classmates that he's not so generous with their grades. And when he thinks they've gotten something wrong, he writes pages and pages explaining why. He is tough, they say. They think it's because they're women. Walking to class one time, a couple of classmates tell Cassie they've emailed Professor Snyder about it. Wow, Cassie thinks that's a step. Interesting. Oh, I kept reading. Sorry. Anyway,
It's okay. It was just one sentence. No worries.
Hi, Molly Lollipop. And thank you all for being here. Please hit the thumbs up if you have forgotten. Okay.
Chapter 36, Pullman, Washington, October 2022. The weather hovers between fall and winter. It's bitterly cold, but the first snow has yet to arrive. After class at around 5 p.m., Ben Roberts is milling around in Wilson Short Hall when he bumps into Bryan, who offers to give him a lift home. Ben hesitates. He lives only a few minutes away, but he does need a ride, and he's curious. Ben wants to understand what underlies Bryan's antagonistic behavior toward the women in class, so he makes a decision. He accepts. Ben gets into Bryan's white Hyundai Elantra. Bryan keeps the car's interior clean and tidy, he notices. The conversation begins straightforwardly enough, at least in Ben's mind. They talk about some of the negative impacts of social media. Ben says he believes that social media encourages people to stay within bubbles of like-minded people. Dating app searches, for example, Ben points out, are designed algorithmically to keep men and women in certain groups. Bryan gets personal. Are you seeing anyone? He asks.
Oh boy. No, says Ben, and I'm fine with that. Ben doesn't add something he doesn't think Bryan knows, and that is none of his business anyway. He's not straight. He wants to change the topic, but Bryan wants to talk about women, what he thinks of them. He tells Ben that he believes in traditional gender roles, the implication being that their female colleagues are wasting their time in class and have no business pursuing master's degrees. Essentially, Bryan believes that men should make money and women should be homemakers. Ben thinks the sentiment is tasteless as well as anachronistic and odd for someone who's chosen to attend Wazoo, a progressive academic community where women outnumber men on the faculty. The department's head is a woman, Dr. Melanie Angela Newelly, who is interested in feminist theories, no less, in researching comparative homicides, specifically violent homicides. She also has a wider interest in criminology theories, including feminist theorizations of crime. But Ben is even more horrified by what Bryan says next. I can walk into any social gathering and get any girl I want. It's an extraordinary thing to say, and in Ben's mind, it puts Bryan at creep level. And not just because Ben doubts, given Bryan's weird physical appearance, that there's any truth to the boast. Ben doesn't rate himself highly as a specimen of physical attractiveness, but this guy, he looks more like Gollum than George Clooney, Ben thinks.
He doesn't know that Bryan has in fact seen a girl he wants and cannot get, a beautiful girl with long blonde hair and blue eyes. Bryan continues talking, seemingly looking for a sign of agreement from Ben. When they arrive at Ben's place, he gets out of the car, hoping they're done. They're not. Bryan asks to use his bathroom. He lingers in Ben's tiny sardine can studio apartment until 7:45 p.m. Both men remain standing for the conversation because Ben has only 2 chairs and one of them is piled high with stuff. Ben does not consider these hours well spent. As for Bryan, he probably realized Ben wasn't the kindred spirit he'd hoped he was.
That's a very interesting chapter right there.
Yeah.
So he's fronting out there that he could get any woman he wants, but he hasn't. But that hasn't. Do we even know what? Actually, there is one girl that I've heard come out talk about how they used to flirt, or even they may have even hooked up. But I've only seen one of those. It's hard to tell if Bryan ever got any action on his own, you know. But I just want to address real quickly Molly Lollipops. So normally I'd be more than happy to link my other channel to this channel, but I specifically don't link them together because I'm 99% sure that my other channel, Checkmate, was shadow banned by the platform because every time I made a video on that channel, I criticized the hell out of them, and I'm a former employee. Okay. So they don't like that.
There's that. Yeah. There's that.
They don't like that. So I noticed that my views had just really fallen off a cliff after a while. So if you are still really interested in getting a link to that channel, you are more than welcome to email me at checkmatehumanity@gmail.com, and I will email the link to you if you can't find it. But you should, it's still there, and people still comment on it all the time. I mean, all the time, because there's a lot of content on there about the scams of and the horrible criminal behavior of a true crime channel that I follow, that I was in litigation with. So, and that true crime channel gets a lot of views and traction from the Kohberger case. And a lot of times they'll come and see my videos and go, "Oh my God, I had no idea how crazy this woman was."
Right.
So the channel still is there. But if you can't find it, you're more than happy to, more than welcome to send me an email. Okay. Let's just keep going a little bit more.
Yeah. I think we're several chapters away from part 3.
Okay.
So we can either go on or we can stop whenever you want.
Okay. And I think it's your turn.
Is it? Okay. Chapter 37, Pullman, Washington, September 23, 2022. The way the cohort hears it, this is what goes down in Professor Snyder's office. Dr. Snyder calls Bryan in to talk about all the complaints. Women have emailed him saying the TA is grading the female students unfairly, and some of his cohorts say his interruptions in class are misogynistic. Professor Snyder informs Bryan of what's being said and suggests he change his ways. Stop interrupting the women, he tells the strange young man, or he says something along those lines. They're complaining. Stop writing them essays on their essays. It's offensive. Be generous and brief. A rumor goes around that Snyder makes the point that the undergraduates cannot be expected to have the same level of knowledge as Bryan. Snyder is trying to be helpful, but apparently, or so they hear later, none of them was in the room, obviously. Bryan's anger spills out of him. Fuck it. No more pretending. Something sends him out of control.
They deserve what they get, he says. Ooh. The professor sees that Bryan might be smart, but his Achilles heel is a big ego and a high opinion of himself. And there's something deeper that sets Bryan off, something ugly. Professor Snyder thinks he hears Bryan mutter, "They don't belong in the classroom," but he can't be sure. So in his report on the altercation to the higher-ups on the faculty, he focuses on what he cannot ignore, the young man's anger. A week or so later, on October 3rd, Department Chair Melanie Angela Newelli and Graduate Director Dale Willett called Bryan in to discuss his lack of norms of professional behavior. Professor Willits is there as a witness, so there's a record of what happens in the meeting, which it turns out will be needed. Bryan listens, but he doesn't hear them. He's angry, defiant. He says he wants to meet his critics head on, have a discussion in class, explain his grading. He graded his students poorly because they don't know the topic well. After he leaves, the faculty members are concerned. There's no way Bryan's discussion with his students is likely to go the way he thinks it will. I find this so this is an example of, they're basically writing, they basically took real facts, and there is, oh, good. I'm glad you found it, Molly. These are facts. We do know that he was reprimanded and I think even fired from that TA position right before he committed the murders. So this is real factual information. And then they have also interviewed clearly the people who were involved directly in that situation. So that is, the rest of like I just think that it's not all completely false, even if it's a fictional book or it reads like a narrative, a fictional narrative. Is based on a lot of factual information, if that makes sense. Okay.
Can you imagine being a student in his class and having him grade your paper and still have that and look back at it now? Can you imagine the horror, the shock, it just got to be.
I mean, those were his early targets. The people who were getting bad grades from him just because they're girls, basically.
That's what I was thinking. They could have been targets for him. Oof.
Yep. Okay. Your turn.
Okay. Chapter 38, Pullman, Washington, November 2022. Ben Roberts is still in shock about the delusional self-regard Bryan expressed in the conversation that revealed his offensive, anachronistic view of gender roles. But increasingly, Bryan's appearance becomes even more startling. Ben assumes that Bryan is as stressed as they all are with finals looming. The workload is almost intolerable, and none of the students appears to be in perfect health. In class, Bryan looks positively ill, like he's physically deteriorating. He looked like the Walking Dead, Ben said later. I mean, we're talking, his eyes were just completely dark most of the time. He just looked gone. This wasn't just sleep deprivation, it was more serious, ongoing. He heard the rumors that Bryan got reprimanded by Professor Snyder, but Bryan doesn't offer any information. Ben goes to the Wazoo Student Care Network and fills out a form indicating his concern. He wants to send it to the administration. The school's website states that these reports can be made anonymously.
But before pressing submit, Ben looks for the anonymous reporting function. He can't see that his anonymity will be protected for sure. Ben wants to help his exhausted classmate, but he doesn't want Bryan searching out and finding the person who submitted the form. He doesn't want this coming back to him. There's something about this guy that is just too weird. So Ben deletes what he's typed, never imagining that the act of pushing the backspace button on his keyboard will come to haunt him. Oh, there must be so many people who were in that position of being like, this guy is weirding me the F out.
Right.
And but I feel bad, I feel bad telling on him, so I won't do it. And, and that could have been another way to curb his behavior. But honestly, it's none of these people's fault for not reporting him or not doing what they're supposed to do. He's the one who committed the murders. He's the one that acted this out. It's just that it helps us to see what to look out for in the future, what we should be more diligent and, see something, say something about in the future, and not constantly protect people who could eventually be like this. It's none of these people's fault, but I'm sure they all have some form of guilt,
Yeah, absolutely. Chapter 39, Pullman, Washington, October 14th, 2022. Bryan is driving his white 2015 Hyundai Elantra when he hears the siren. Damn, again. He pulls over and sits there as a Wazoo police officer, Isabel Luengas, gets out of her cruiser and approaches him. Bryan rolls down his window, looking as calm as possible, even though his heart is racing. Hello, officer. Officer Luengas politely greets Bryan. Wearing a body camera, she starts by telling him that the stop is being audio and video recorded. Then she says, I think you know why I stopped you. You ran the red light. What actually happened was I was stuck in the middle of the intersection, Bryan answers, so I was forced to turn left. Yeah, I was behind you the whole time, Luengas says a little skeptically. She explains that she watched Bryan enter the intersection illegally. She asked for his license, registration, insurance.
Bryan hands them over. He's cooperative. He apologizes profusely. Luengas seems receptive, so Bryan plows on, getting in deep. All that practice being verbal in class is paying off. He tells the cop that he's from a rural part of Pennsylvania, as his vehicle registration shows, and when it comes to pulling into an intersection like he just did, it never even occurred to me that was actually something wrong. Back home, you could drive like that with impunity. His performance works. He gets away with it, just like he did back in August. The officer lets him go with a warning. For Bryan, it's likely an empowering moment. Back at DeSales in Professor Ramsling's class, he learned that a month before the day of retribution, Elliot Rodger was paid a visit by police officers. They left with no clue that he was planning a mass murder. It's possible that Bryan, too, can get away with anything he wants. So this one sentence or paragraph right here, that's an example of how they kind of expand on probably what happened with Bryan, where they say, Luengas seems receptive, so Bryan plows on, getting in deep. All that practice being verbal in class is paying off. So that's some assumption that they've put in there. That is it's a fair assumption. It's a fair assumption, but it's also, we can't be sure, because we don't know what was in his head at that moment, but we do know, and a lot of us have seen this very specific body cam where this interaction very much did occur, so
Right.
yeah.
I mean, there's all the truth that's in here, right? But it's stitched together in a way that's fictional, but the fiction is based on pretty fair and good assumptions, it sounds like. It feels like, yeah.
And like Molly Lollipop says, at the very least, he shouldn't have been driving so much. He was clearly a terrible driver. He gets pulled over twice on his way back to Pennsylvania. That may have been staged, but I mean, he gets pulled over a hell of a lot. By that age, he was what, 20, like, he was 29, 30 by that time, 27, 28, 29, 30 by that time. You should have learned how to not drive and get pulled over so much. But anyway, I think this is a good place to stop because the next chapter is 40, and we can pick up after that. But this is extremely interesting background, and it's clearly all based on interviews that they've had with various people that have come into his orbit, and it's very thoroughly researched, very, very thoroughly researched. I think it's a riveting read for sure.
It's excellent. I think it's excellent, this book.
Yeah. So for anyone who would like to donate to the channel, I've just put in my I just tried to trigger Nightbot to do what it's supposed to do, but it's not doing it. It's Nightbot.
There it goes.
Oh, there it goes. Stupid Nightbot. Yeah. You're my only mod. You have one job.
I know.
Do the things I programmed for you, you dumb bot. But anyway, I think this is a really good book. It's very well put together, well written, and keeps you on the edge of your seat. And I don't feel like anything is like unfair to him. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're using a lot of facts to back up the other statements that they're making.
Yeah, it strikes me that, I mean, we saw what happened with Wade Wilson, and he, unbeknownst to us, when all of this happened, he would turn into this infamous sort of prison celebrity, right?
Oh yeah.
As much as I hate to say that. And even now, there are lots of channels that are still profiting from the content that is coming out, whether it's phone calls from prison or reading, the emails or, all of that. And people still find it fascinating, I guess. But it strikes me that, Kohberger could go in that direction. I mean, he could have women writing him, and
believe that there is going to be somebody coming out with their first conversation with Kohberger.
Oh, absolutely. Women are going to throw themselves at him, and there's going to be a GoFundMe set up for his whatever, and I can just see it turning into this huge thing again.
Here comes the Kohberger scams, and part of that is putting him in, making it sound like he's just this poor innocent guy who's been,
wronged.
His rights have been violated. Bullshit. His rights have not been violated.
Right.
No, I mean, look at how there was so much fervor around Chris Watts, and he didn't get justice. There was, I mean, as much fervor about him as there ever has been about anybody. And look at it now. Nobody's talking about him being exonerated now, and nothing has changed. Nothing new has come out. Nothing. But they all try to make up reasons to create content, and this will last for a while because they're putting out the discovery and stuff.
Right. Yeah, I can see it going in that direction, sadly enough. But
so, and as much as I do, I'm obsessed with true crime, but what I get inspired to make content about is these types of scams.
Right.
When people are using true crime cases and victims' names and victims' families to scam via social media. It drives me insane, so
because as you say, it becomes pro-crime.
Yes.
I mean, the whole Wade Wilson thing was is absolutely that. The victims have gotten lost in all of the ridiculousness of the content that these content creators are pushing out.
Yeah.
And that's a crime in itself, in a way.
Yeah. And and in most cases, those victims aren't even here to speak for themselves.
No, they aren't.
So who's going to do it?
Right. And their families are still there. And I mean, it's shameful.
Yeah. I noticed that Dylan Mortensen did an interview with, or her family did an interview with Bryan Nenton. I haven't seen that.
Oh, okay.
But I'm honestly a little bit afraid to watch it because it might just put me in a dark place. Because it's so bad. But
yeah.
Anyway,
so I'll watch it and let you know.
Okay. I feel a duty to watch it. I'll watch it. I honestly feel a duty to watch it based on the type of stuff I cover and what I care about. But I'm trepidatious at the same time.
Right.
But I'll do it. It's like it certainly can't hurt me any more than she's been hurt.
Yeah.
It's insanity. But thank you everybody for being here. Thank you, my lovely co-reader, Cinnamon Girl. And until further notice, I plan to be here next week as well.
Can't wait to get on to these next chapters.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you everybody. And thank you, Cinnamon.
You're welcome. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.